Hey, welcome to the Street Cred podcast, the show laser focused on helping streetwear brand owners turn their side gig into a full time job. And I'm Elijah Delport. And today I'm joined by a very special guest. Jaslar Pearl is the founder of a brand conveniently named also Jaslar Pearl. He has a bachelor in fashion design. He's featured on Melbourne Fashion Week. Jaslar, how are you?
How we going? I'm good, thanks.
Well, please, I'd love you to start off by sharing. I mean, I know we've just for some context, Jasler and I, we've met on one occasion, or like no, actually two occasions in real life, and so we've had the great opportunity to speak about some of the things that are going on in the brand Jasler Pearl, and but but I'd love you, Jasler, to share with the audience a, a bit more context, flesh out like what is your brand, who is it for, and any key moments you feel that might be relevant for them to get a real idea of what you're doing in your streetwear brand.
Yeah, for sure. So my label Jaslar Pearl started it in 2017. Um, but since then I had a rebrand about a couple years ago. Now it's very much inspired by like my Italian heritage, and so it is streetwear is a very like sort of broad term, so it is sort of streetwear, but I try not to use that term as much because it's not really the typical thing that I go for is like just like printed t-shirts and things. Um,
Mm,
but my it's very like yeah, so it comes from my Italian sort of heritage. I try to aim for like more classic sort of timeless silhouettes, but then
mm,
add a more playful and I guess almost vibrant and colorful sort of approach to it. So using like pastel colors and then like softer fabrics and try to use like natural fabrics as well and things like that. Um, and then yeah, we with the branding try to. I guess if you think of like Wes Anderson, or a lot of people always compare us to Tyler the Creator, think that my inspiration more comes from like Casablanca, if which is a brand from Paris, which has been a big inspiration for me. Um, Basically, those like sort of European vibes. I went there in 2018, and it's just like the architecture, like everything's just so beautiful. Like the architecture, the landscapes, and like just the colors I saw is like so. I tried to bring that over and sort of give my brand that sort of point of difference that is relevant to me. I hope that answers the question, but yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think, Jasler, it's really interesting that you mention your brand's point of difference in reference to the subculture that you've knitted it into, that it's really established itself into, because I think it's a big question, from any point in a brand's journey, whether it's starting out or somewhere along the journey. It's what is our point of difference, because it matters, and the point of difference really, I mean, it means the difference between, from a customer's perspective, them picking your brand over another. That's what it answers. It answers the question, like, why would they pick you over anyone else? And so
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think you highlight a great way to differentiate your brand, because like a lot of these brands, like, they start with the product. They say, well, we're just going to make the best garments, or we're going to, a lot of brands try to differentiate through quality and like the quality of the materials or their design. But the problem is, like, how, I struggle, and I think your customers struggle many times to see the what's the real differentiation there, because
For
any
sure.
really, like, brand can put, you know 300 GSM on a t-shirt, and any brand can hire like X designer, or, it's not inaccessible anymore, and it means it's not much of a differentiation. But Jasler, what you're doing, where you've said, well, my differentiation goes beyond the garment. It's actually about the lifestyle behind it. In this case, it's your Italian heritage that you're pulling inspiration from. Well, that can be a real differentiation, because, I mean, how many brands out there are really doing that, that like leaning into the Italian culture as Jaslar Pearl is. Um, so yeah, I mean, it just brings a really interesting lens on differentiation. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. That's always been a thing for me. Is like I've always wanted to, like, I've never wanted to make things that someone else has made. Like, what's the point, really? I've
Mm.
always tried to. I think I'm successing a bit more with it now, but I've always tried successing. I'm a bit more successful now. Um, doing it now than when I started, but it's always been um like a goal of mine is to try and make something a bit more unique and something that's different, that's
Mm.
not as commonly found, like just a random screen printed t-shirt. I've always sort of opted for um like different techniques, like even if it's just embroidery or like applique or um chenille or something like that, just different sort of fabrics and techniques and things that separate. Like you were saying, it is so accessible now, and especially with TikTok and like all that media, it's like you can,
Yeah.
they tell you everything. Like there's someone that'll tell you all the answers pretty much. Not that it's that simple, but it's like the information's so accessible nowadays. Um, but also, even if you have 300 GSM or the quality is amazing, it's better than the next guy. It's like today's like pretty much online. So how can you tell that without selling something else? Like you have to, like you're saying, you have to sell the brand. Yeah, brands sell clothes. It's not the clothes that sell itself. People buy into the brand itself typically.
Justly, you were
Yeah.
dropping bombs left, right, and center. This is really good. I'm like, where do I go on what you said? Because there's a few things. I want to come back to what you were saying about the fact that people buy clothes online more and more, and so how much does the quality matter? I want to come back to that, but first, I
Yep.
love, on the differentiation piece. I love that you don't like something I really like about your brand, Justler, is it. I feel like you've got many elements of a designer, and you have the business mind. And I've always
Yeah.
noticed that you're kind of you're a crossover. You're an in between the two, and it creates this really beautiful space where it came out in your speech perfectly. It's the first thing that you suggest. The first thing that you speak about is your brand and the importance of it. And then the second thing is your product. And so I feel like, and tell me if this is incorrect, but I feel like it's true that comes from a real understanding of the importance of brand as the foundation for any products that come after that. And and I'm curious, Jasla, do you find that having your brand so ingrained in the Italian heritage culture that you're able to pull a lot of inspiration for designs out of that? Would you find that's the
Yeah,
case?
for sure. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think. Sorry, you broke up a little bit. But like I was saying before, it's like, so I went to Italy. So I've got Italian heritage. I went to Italy in 2018, and like I spent a few weeks there, and I just like really enjoyed it. And then I brought it back, and I was still thinking, like, I had a brand already. Like I said, started in 2017. I had a brand already, but I wasn't, it had its differences, but I wasn't sure if that's like, where was the brand's sort of future in, because it was very sort of
Mm,
street when it started. And then I went to Italy. I was I was exposing myself to like Italian fashion and like
right.
Italian design in general. And then I found inspiration, and I found this sort of niche, I guess, that I really enjoy and that feels more true to me and like
Mm,
the direction that I want to take it. And I think it has a lot more longevity. Creating something different. Like if you create something that's, if you're following those trends and like making whatever tracksuit or whatever, you might blow up, you might blow up faster, but then it's onto the next trend and you're forgotten already. I think trying to
Yeah.
create something that's a little bit different might bring along with that some sort of longevity, a bit more than
Mm.
others. And then also, you said about my business and creative mind. I wanted to say, wanted to touch on that. Is like, yeah, my mum was. I agree with you. So like when I went to design school, like I felt like I was more of like a business, like like compared to those guys, I was very much like more business than them. But then when I'm here with like out with my like I know a lot of clothing brand owners and stuff, then I'm more on the creative side opposed to them.
Yeah.
It's like um my mum used to be a business mentor, so she's like ever as long as like forever, she's always like ingrained like just good business practice and how to
Mm.
operate like into us, and that's sort of helped me. So it's sort of like it feels like common sense at this point for most of it. Not saying I'm a business guru or anything, but for the most parts, it feels like common sense to me. Like, and it just comes like fairly natural. And then I've just all created since a young age. My mum taught me how to sew when I was 7, so ever since then, I've always wanted to work in
Oh
fashion.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it sounds like she taught you both sides in a way, that both the creative and the business. She inspired both
yeah, for
those things
sure.
in you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
that's
very
amazing.
much
Could you,
similar.
yeah, could you share? I'd love if you shared one of the most valuable lessons that you believe your mother taught you, as a well, from what you've said, she's been advising businesses, and she has that business mind. What's something that she said to you that stuck with you, that you've maybe even applied in your own brand, that might be valuable for some of the listeners today?
Um, that's tough. It's hard to pick out like a moment or something that she said. Um,
Mm.
I don't know. Like it's just the everyday, like the little things. It's just we'd always like we'd go to like anytime we'd go to like a cafe or we go to a restaurant or we go to a clothing store or we go anywhere, should always just like point out things and say like, oh, they should be doing this or they should do this better, or there's no one in here, they need signage at the front, they need whatever, their marketing's not good. It's just all those like it's just you don't really see it as lessons because it's just normal to how like just
Mm.
saying things like pointing out things, always like giving feedback and um ways to um ways I'm trying to think of something that's um I don't know, something that she always, I mean, I think I do it, but something that she always says to me is focus on selling, because I get caught up in the creating and like I said, like we were saying, so I do the business part, but I'm more in business for creating than for making like millions or whatever. Um, so she always tells me to like focus on selling more than just branding. Um, they come hand in hand, but there is a like, well, not yeah, not necessarily, but they typically the branding helps the selling, but um I don't know how to put this, but focus on actually pushing the products rather than just pushing a story or something. You have to
Mm.
have both. You have to have a balance, I guess. Um, so yeah, she always tells me to be a bit more forceful and selling, but I don't know.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you. It's really interesting that you mentioned that, because I suppose, I mean, with a lot of the topics that I talk about on this show, as well as my other outputs in the world of business, my angle has always been on branding more than selling. Because I don't know about you,
Mm,
this might be from her industry, or I'm not sure really much about her own background, but what I notice in the streetwear fashion industry is that the brand these a lot of these brands are really good at selling. They're really good at
Mm.
selling. Like if anything, that is their that is their top thing really. Like because and the reason I say that is because you'll have a look at their Instagram pages and they're filled with their product. And so I don't know, I look at that and they say, well, yeah, you got the selling bit down. So I appreciate what she says, because like the fact is that people do need to know about your product in order to buy it. And if they
Mm.
don't know about it, well, they're not going to buy it. And the other
Yeah.
side of that is that, well, the branding is important too, because and this is something on you said earlier, Jaslar, was about the fact that people buy a brand before they buy a product, and
Yeah.
people like that is really what people are buying. And so by marketing the brand, people are enabled to buy the brand. So I wonder if that advice is more I don't know, like I'm curious to hear your thoughts
So
about this, about how relevant it is.
it's I think it's more directed to my current anyone like similar to me,
Right.
who is very like like they want to just create. They want to create something cool. They want to tell a
Yeah,
story,
right.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
So she's not saying don't do the branding. She was saying you've got the branding down pat, like you're good now.
Yes.
Like keep
Right.
doing that, but then add the selling. Like don't just put it send it nowhere type of thing. You know what I mean? Don't lead it nowhere. Lead it to a sale. You know, have that as a target. Is you want to get people to buy into the
Yeah,
brand, but then you also want to direct them to this is how you can
that's
do
good.
that sort of thing.
That's
You
really
know,
good. Yeah.
um, yeah, so it's for me where I'm at. She knows what I'm good
Yeah.
at is like the branding and the storytelling, and that's what I enjoy and that's what I like
Mm,
doing. But I don't like I don't want to be I don't like telling people, oh, you should buy this, or buy this. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah, if that clears that up. I know what you're saying, but yeah, so she knows where I'm at. So anyone that's you need both, but where I'm at with how I like to do things, with focusing more on the creative and telling a story, need to focus on the selling as well. But if you're the opposite and you purely focus on selling, then you need to focus on the branding. So it goes either way.
Yeah, I'm really glad you clarified that because yeah, I mean that's a really what's the word? It's a very admirable trait um that you have. I think if anything, I believe it would work for you than against you. But I mean, yeah, I can see the relevance of her advice in your specific situation. Um, so that's really interesting. Okay, well then, Jasler, since you are such an authority, and then in terms of creating stories and really like it, just say we're speaking to someone on the other side of the other extreme, right? They're good at selling, right? And they look up to brands who have the success, and maybe this streetwear brand owner isn't quite there yet, and they wonder why. They don't really know where they're going wrong because their Instagram is filled with the the sales and the selling aspect, and it's their product is getting out there. So can you speak to them and share a little bit about your mindset on storytelling and how you believe that plays a role in branding, in the business of streetwear, and ultimately selling a product?
Yeah, for sure. So when when you when I talk about storytelling, for me it's very sort of literal. Is like I like to tell a narrative, like a story, create characters. um they do this, they do that, whatever. This is what they're like, this is their interests, this is what they dress like, whatever. And this is like, so I'm very literal with my stories and my storytelling. I take a lot of inspiration from like Wes Anderson, where with my current sort of direction that I'm taking my campaigns. um but it doesn't that's not necessarily what storytelling has to mean. um for example, I guess like Trico on like TikTok, if you've heard of that brand, their storytelling is like the game changers. So it's not necessarily a narrative or anything. It's just their story is that they're changing the game and, promoting like entrepreneurship and doing things differently and trying to, travel and support like local artists and whatever it may be. Um, so storytelling can mean different things, but the branding, when you do ads or when you tell anyone about a brand or when they see a product or whatever, the first thing they do is they go to the Instagram. So, and then they want to buy into they're going to scroll through the photos, look at the pictures, the videos, whatever, read the bio, um, and they're going to buy into, well, that's the point where they have to buy into the brand. So even if you have the best products in the world, if they don't buy into the brand, they're not going to click on the website. So that's why branding is like so important, and the storytelling sort of aspect is you have to like sort of find your what you want it to mean. Like what does it all stand for really at the end of the day? Like why why do you do it, and why should people buy it? Like what does it stand for?
Mm.
Um, you know what I mean? It was Yeah. Did I answer that question?
Oh yeah, yeah, it's solid. That was a better answer than I could have given. Um, yeah, that's fantastic. Like, I love that you mentioned the fact that you're a very literal storyteller when you do your marketing, because you take influence from Wes Anderson. Which, by the way, if dear listener don't know who Wes Anderson is, he's a director. Um, probably of all of the non-mainstream directors, he's probably a bit more in the mainstream. And
Yeah.
he has a very distinctive style, very blunt, um, kind of deadpan comedy. But he's great at what he does. And so, yeah, as you say, you do the characters and everything, which is an option. And there's streetwear brands out there that do that kind of storytelling. I know that Balenciaga, they sometimes, I mean, again, what are we considering streetwear? It's a pretty broad, you know, it's a pretty broad category. But anyway,
So,
I'm just gonna say tell the story. Balenciaga, they have, I remember they did a campaign with The Simpsons, and
yeah, that was
they
sick.
created. It was so cool. It was so cool because it was like a 10 or 15 minute Simpsons episode with Balenciaga, and it was official. And I just remember watching this, and I'm like, man, this is great. Like, I shared
Uh,
it. I shared it on my email list because I just thought it was fantastic. I spoke about it with my friends after, and the my point really is that people share stories. I shared the story because if it was just a regular campaign and it was cool clothing, as you say, Jaslar, it doesn't matter how cool the clothes are. It doesn't matter how great their designs are. I'm probably not going to talk about it as I would with a Simpsons episode. That's awesome. And so that's the literal storytelling route. Um, and then of course there's the, as you see, the more subtle storytelling. and and like, I think that's easy to do when you've started with what is the ideology, ethos, or lifestyle behind my brand. And you've gone, Joshua, well,
mm,
that's the Italian culture. That is the lifestyle. That is the ideology. And that makes, I suppose, that makes storytelling a whole lot easier, because now it's no
yeah,
longer
for sure.
about, well, how do I make this about my product? And I guess the stories could be kind of clunky if it's about, you know this is how we made the product. And
Yeah.
whereas if it's about, well, it's
Yeah.
Italian culture, now your world is open. Now we can tell stories about, we can make characters, and we can pull elements of Italian lifestyle, and find little micro stories in there about, what people do the day to day markets in the streets. And your mind is just opened up when you have that initial branding, and you're able to
Yeah, yeah,
access
for sure.
the benefits of storytelling.
yeah, you gotta one thing that I have is so I have like creative pillars and then content pillars.
Mm,
So I just have them in like, so there's a few handful of dot points about what sort of, so the content creative pillars is what is my brand. So it's Italian, it's playful, it's like elements of romance and then like travel and excitement or something like along those lines. And then my content pillars are like colorful or colorful pastel, um, exciting, adventure, travel, same sort of thing. And there's another one off the top of my head. But yeah, so it's important to set those sort of the groundworks and the pillars beneath the brand, and then that makes it a lot easier to sort of, well, one, just to create, but then to stay consistent and sort of not stray from what the brand is, and then that makes it so much clearer for a customer as well. Like, if you're changing style every collection, or like it just each collection looks like a different brand, it's confusing, and then also you're you're disconnecting from your customers, sort of. Yeah, so I think that's pretty important to sort of you. It also it also could be a mission and a vision statement. I like the pillars because
mm.
you can be like, there's a mission and a vision. It's like you're writing that for someone, so you're trying to make it sound good. But the content pillars can just be in simple terms that work well for you to describe exactly what you want to be and what you want to create and the direction you want to take.
Justly, you were giving cheat codes left, right, and center. I'm so glad you mentioned the content and the creative and content pillars because, I mean, of course, I mean, I work a lot with content pillars, but I hadn't even, I've never even heard of creative pillars. Um, so, man, that's so good. That is so good. I'd love for
Yeah,
you
that's
to, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it just makes it easier for me, you know, and
Heck
that's what I
yeah.
like to do, just because
Yeah.
it can be like when you're creating and trying to think new ideas, it's like a million things are coming in and out of your head, and you're writing down and drawing stuff, and sometimes
Yes.
you might expand on one thing, and then you look at it, and then you go, "This is nothing like what it should be," and then you have to dial it
Yeah.
back or change, go in a different direction.
Mm. Yeah, this is so good because I think our the common view of branding is very limited. Like you Google search branding and what you'll get is logo, brand name, brand colors,
Yeah,
and those things are all branding, and they're good. They're good. They are branding. But I think the problem is many brands stop there. So they have their brand name, of course, they have their brand logo, and they have their brand colors, and that's it. Maybe they even have a bit of an idea of what their style is, right? But it's broad in general. And so I love that you mentioned these creative and content pillars because you bring a broadened perspective to what branding is. And it's actually going, well, we need to go deeper than just the brand name, than the brand colors and your logo. Like we need to talk about what is your story, what are your creative pillars, and what are your content pillars, and and I love that you mentioned the business benefits to that as well. And I think the main ones is the most direct and obvious one is time and ease, right? You get the peace of mind of just knowing, well, I'm gonna, instead of just brainstorming pulling something out of nothing, you've got, well, I've got this base, I've got this foundation, let me see what I can bring up out of that. And
yeah,
that can remove a meeting every week, that can remove a couple of hours every week brainstorming for content creation for your next campaign. What are you going to call it? What are you going to name it? What's it going to be about? How are you going to market it? You can cut the time doing that significantly. Um, but Jasler, please, I'd love you to expand a bit more about these content and creative pillars. How did you create yours? What was the process, and how could someone go about creating their own?
Yeah, good question. I mean, everyone like sort of works in a different way, but it is sort of about that brainstorming. I guess you have to sort of project as well, like where do you see this like adventure, I guess this project, this brand or whatever going, where do you see it heading? So you need to take that into account. What do you want it to look like? So yeah, what do you want it to look like? Where's it going? And just brainstorm those sort of things and what it's all about and what do you want to get out of it. Um, and I think just what it looks like as well. Um, and yeah, brainstorm those different ideas, go through that trial and error. It'll take time. You probably change it a little bit along the way. You might change it completely at one point. But you'll sort of figure it out as you go and like what sort of means something to you. Um, and then so yeah, I think when you start with the creative pillars, and then it'll make it easier for the content pillars because
Mm,
um, because you'll know what it's like we're saying, you'll be able to that's your building blocks or whatever, and then you'll be able to go to the next thing, which then makes everything else
yeah.
easier. So if you have your creative pillars sorted out, then it will be a lot easier to think, okay, what does that look like, create like content wise, um what does like
Mm,
Italian look like in content, and then you can you know look up old, vintage Italian like newspapers or whatever, or photos, or travel, go see it if you can,
yeah.
or like Italian brands, Italian architecture, landscapes, whatever it may be, um, and then it makes it a lot easier to sort of go that direction once you set those creative sort of pillars. Makes it easier for the content pillars, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's step one, the creative pillars, and then step two, the content pillars. And
yeah,
and with you mentioned before you had a bit of a rebrand. I
yeah,
assume, I mean, that plays a big role into what it's very much related to what we're speaking about right now. So my question is, what prompted your rebrand? Like, what was your brand before, and what prompted you to make a change, to decide you needed to make a change?
sure. So, it started off very street and like almost skater, I guess. It Yeah, and it was good, and like I don't diss it. Like it still had its like point of difference. It's like little points of difference, and it was um still things that I liked. But then I think with travel and then just immersing myself more into the high fashion sort of scene, and then studying as well, studying fashion as well, I sort of pushed myself to think like, I don't know, it just wasn't different enough, and it wasn't me per se, because it was very like black and white, and I love colors and things like that. But I was just trying to, I don't know, maybe I was following trends a little bit, but still putting my own spin on it. Um, and then yeah, I'm not sure what exactly started it, but I just sort of found this idea of following my Italian heritage, and I just loved it. It was originally just going to be a collection, like that was going to be that, but then it was like completely different, and then I just thought
Mm,
this is actually better than what I have been doing anyway, and I like this direction way more. Let me run with that, and then just change everything, you know, like and then rethink what is the brand about, and then it made it so much clearer as well because it was different, and unique, because because it has that point of difference. It makes it easier to determine what it's about. If you just, oh yeah, I'm a skate brand, streetwear brand, I make hoodies, tees, and I make cool graphics, and they might say this, but what is the actual brand about? Because it doesn't really have a huge point of difference. So yeah, it can make things a little bit sort of more confused, but
Mm.
now just like I have a clear direction. I know what my inspirations are. I know what my content and creative pillars are, and it just sort of felt more natural as well. Like it felt easier to create, and then it felt more more true to me and like what I want to be putting out. You know what I mean?
That's great. What I pick up from what you're saying is that there was a few benefits to that rebrand. One was the real business benefit of the differentiation, in that you felt you had something that had more potential to work than maybe it did before. And that's a
Yeah,
real advancement in business, and that matters because, well, this is now talking about financial. This is talking about financials. This is talking about the potential to grow, and for even one to continue in their streetwear brand at all. The sustainability of one's brand kind of requires that, and so maybe there was an assurance in there from what I hear about your ability to be sustainable in the brand, and how the rebrand brought that. And the other thing that I pulled from what you were saying is about your own passions, and the fact that in a rebrand, in hyper focusing on a specific idea, a meaning that goes beyond just the tangible product itself, some sort of intangible idea, that being your Italian heritage. You are able to speak about something now that you were passionate about, and I don't know how that affected your drive in your brand. Maybe you can speak on that a little bit. But it sounds to me that there was a greater sense um, of 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 passion, that, like, in the brand after that point.
yeah, for sure. It was definitely feel a lot more connected and yeah, passion towards like the designs because they sort of um I don't know, like they have the sort they have all the elements for me. They have the storytelling, they have the design,
Yeah,
they have colors, like the quality and like everything sort of like that. So that it just sort of
yeah.
works. It just comes natural, comes a lot more
Mm.
natural. Um, so I got designs back here. I'm thinking like some early
Bring
designs
them
that
out if you want.
I did. Um, all right, I got hold on. um I got these two pieces that these were sort of I think these were what sort of started it. Um, I think this one I sort of
So this was
um,
the collection, was it?
yeah, this is one that I was doing in school. So for listeners, I sew and make pieces myself, but then I also outsource some pieces as well. So these are pieces that I use for like Melbourne Fashion Week and Melbourne Fashion
Yeah.
Festival and things like that for runways and more intricate sort of one-off pieces. So this is like I think this is
Mm.
probably one of the jackets that sort of started it all. So obviously my last name is Pearl, so I've stitched like pearls on here, um,
Haha.
and then we've got the pearls on the back there, and so a lot of like so I come from an island called Salina, so I got for the colors. It's like it's a sort of a coastal town as well, so it ties in the pearls and that. But then the fabrics as well, like a lot of Italian fabrics, wool, leather, cotton, things like that. So that's a wool blend. It's got the coral on the sleeves, which is like again with the pearls, and then the coastal town, and then the other
Mm.
jacket is like a landscape of Capri. So so I fully forgot what the question was, but
Well, I don't know either,
like
dude.
it's
Just
just
this is a good route though. This,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Keep
yeah,
going.
yeah.
You go. You're
um,
doing good. You're doing
but
good.
it's but yeah, like it just makes it easier, because I have something that I'm passionate about, something that I know about, and something that's
Mm.
it's sort of clear as well. Um, and like this shirt is like inspired by, um, like The Sopranos and like mob movies and stuff like that, like the Cuban collar shirts that they have and stuff. So, and then
La
the hat
mafia.
is like, yeah, exactly. Um, the hat is like Neapolitan ice cream, so it's got like the chocolate, the vanilla, and then there's strawberry on the back. So if you know like Neapolitan ice cream that comes with those three colors, so it's like you can take it wherever you want, but like it's like all completely different inspirations, like
Yeah, that's
food,
so good.
pop culture, and then landscapes, but then it's still all sort of ties together, and
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so good. Yeah, like it just oh, I mean, this is as good example as any of how having that clear, I mean, I like to call it a brand's big idea. And and the
Mm,
big idea is the Italian culture. And having that clear big idea just motivates every decision. Um,
for
but in
sure.
such and it's not just for no reason. Like yes, yeah, it makes efficiency and it makes everything fluid and it's like the glue that holds everything together. There's that, of course. Um, but but even more than that, like there is real value in doing it, I think. And this maybe comes back to the what we were talking before about stories, the way that it opens up your ability to make stories. And so as well as the product in the way that you market the product and even bigger than that, the brand behind the product, if you're able to create these stories, you significantly increase your potential of shareability. Um,
Mm,
and word of mouth is of any type of marketing the
that's the
greatest type
best.
of
Yeah,
marketing.
100%,
It is the best. It is the
for
best.
sure.
And today, what does word of mouth look like today? Like it's not. Maybe it's not. I mean, it does include, I think, talking to people about someone's brand, face to face. But word of mouth is pressing the share button on Instagram or sending someone the TikTok link or
Yeah,
reposting something. That is word of mouth. That
for
is
sure.
word of mouth. And we share things. We share things that we identify with and we relate with and we want to associate with. We share things that haven't been done before and haven't been spoken about. Something that's
Yeah,
unique, and so I think there's been this over this over fixation with trying to do that through the product, and every time it coming up dry, as in there's lots of brands trying to innovate in their product, but how much in such a saturated market, how much can you innovate in a product? And it's
mm,
not to
yeah,
suggest that one shouldn't do that. It's just to suggest that, well, maybe there's a better way and a more foundational way and something that's a bit more sure, ways that you can innovate. And maybe that is in the ideology, the big idea behind your brand. What is it really about? If you're not selling clothing, what are you selling? Are you selling the Italian lifestyle? I mean, don't do that because Jaslar doing that. But find your thing, right? And it just, yeah, I
yeah.
feel like I, I just mean to say it is such a the whole concept of a big idea is so rooted and finds itself in every aspect of the brand,
Oh,
from
100%.
from
Yeah.
creating the product to itself, to marketing, branding, and making stories, making things that someone will talk about.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah, it all ties back to it, really.
yeah, yeah. Do you have any gauge, Jasla, for the word of mouth of your brand, or how people have shared it, especially with your stories, how people have engaged with the story? Like, actually, I just want to speak about for context, Jaslar Pearl did a campaign a while ago, and you have to remind me what it was called. Something about looking
It pays.
both ways.
Yeah, it pays to look both ways. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. It pays to look both ways.
yeah,
And so this was a three-part short film story. Um and you built a lot of hype around it. You teased it before you released part 1. You had teasers, and then there were, I think, was it one day after the other you released part 1, part 2, part 3? Is that how it went?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we
And
got
then on
quite a
the
bit of
release
content out
of
of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we had so we had yeah we had some BTS. So that's like a thing. Is like that I've learned is like to get to I try to do things myself, but you need help. Um, and having the right people and having enough people as well is super important. So you have someone like for because you can get so much content out of like one campaign because you can get like the BTS, you can get like teasers, and then you can get videos and then still shots and like so you can make it like a whole sort of time. I can't remember what we called it. Um, but like it's a whole like sort of time stamp in the brand like that's like where it is. So yeah, so we had we're teasing it on stories with the campaign with the BTS and whatnot, and then we had yeah, we had a couple teasers. One like teaser didn't show anything, and then one teaser showed like little clips. It's fast paced. It's more engaging. It gets people like, oh, what's this? And then we have the part 1, part 2, part 3 released each day, and then it's teasing the next one as well, saying like, oh, what happens
Mm,
now? Like it ends on a cliffhanger, um, and then says, oh, the next part's 6 p.m. tomorrow. So come back and then share it. And um, going back to what my mom was saying about selling real quickly is we created like a little at the end of each video we created like a little sort of shop page which had the garments that are used in the video. So that's a way like it's completely telling a story, but then at the end it's showing you this is
yes.
like what how you can invest in this sort of thing. um but yeah, so we created 3 characters. They're on the way to uni. The Wes Anderson style. So it follows one character, wakes up, um, goes about his day. He's going to meet up with the other two, and then what happens in it is so the first guy meets number 2, and he spills a coffee on him accidentally, and then it cuts, and then the second video follows the second guy's journey, and then follows him how he got to meet the first guy and spill the coffee on him, and then the third does the same, so on how they like all meet together. So it follows each character's journey to get to that one sort of point. um, and then we were able to get some still shots out of those videos, and then that shop page as well that we were able to get up. um, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. It's cool. I mean, I really think there's a lot of value in what you mentioned about how you took one project, one piece of content, and turned it into 1,000,001 pieces.
Mm.
And I mean, you're really optimizing your time. You're optimizing the project to be used in many different ways and making it worth your time and money spent on doing a project like that. So yeah, that's yeah, absolutely integral. I'm curious to hear about what do you think the reception was from a campaign like that was heavily focused on storytelling. Particularly, I'd love if you could mention anything notable about the engagement from the community and
Yeah.
how people shared it. Please, if there's anything to say on that.
Yeah, it was actually really great. The response on those probably like the best response I've had on anything. Um, is like I think there was like hundreds of comments on each video. Um, People, I think like also like people are sheep in a way, so it's like if they see someone commenting, they're more inclined to comment as well. Like if there's no comments on a video, they're not going to comment. So once you get those first few as well, it makes it a lot easier. Got heaps of shares. I don't know, like it's very like integral to getting that sort of stuff out there. Like one of them's I think like 140,000 views or something. um and that comes from people commenting, people sharing. um and then um yeah, like, and then it's like, because it pops up, the algorithm that pops up for random people that aren't already following, obviously. Like, and then I have people that like I'll do pop-up shops or whatever, and people come check it out and they go, oh, this is cool. I'm like, wait, I've seen this in a video before, and they'd already seen the video but they didn't know, and then they followed from that point. So
Wow.
even if you don't get like the initial, because the thing with like marketing and that is like people need to see it a certain amount of times before um they'll buy into it typically. Sometimes people will see one guy and they go, oh, that's sick, and follow or buy or whatever. But you need to stay relevant, you need to stay consistent, and you need to stay in people's eyes. So they might see a video, then someone might speak about it, and then they might see you in a store, and then they might buy or whatever it is. It's typically not, especially for like small brands that are unknown. It's typically not a one time like just purchase, like like you post an ad,
Yeah.
they see it and they buy. It's typically a journey to get to that sort of point, and then you need to keep them so then they come back. It's a lot easier, it's a lot easier for warm customers and to keep getting cold customers and things like that. But yeah, back to the video. Yeah, it's I guess like a way to get those shares, and that is like send it to your friends. The simplest way, get people to share it. You can do like competitions and that, get people to do giveaways and whatnot, get people to comment and share, have an engaging sort of um caption. That's something that I might need to improve on. I'm told that sometimes my captions are too small or whatever. But having something engaging, sharing it, and then also this is something that I learned from Tyler the Creator. Is like with his Call Me If You Get Lost album. Like people, he did a Converse All Stars talk. I think it was the one in Sydney, and he was saying like um he was still sharing his album like 12 months later on his story, and like posting about it and stuff,
Wow.
like ages like later. It's like just because you made something ages ago doesn't mean like it's not worth like showing people and telling people about. Like don't just
Mm,
post your video, post your campaign, share it for a week, and then it's like done. You've spent that money or you've made that effort or whatever. Like keep putting it out there. Who cares? Like if people have seen it, like, or people think you're like over posting it or whatever. It's like not everyone's seen it. You're only a certain percentage of people see your stories each time. It's not, you're not getting 100% of your followers seeing your story each time and whatnot. So keep
wow.
posting it. Like
Yeah.
you wanna get it out there.
That's fantastic advice. Yeah. I'm just like, how many with that video, one of the parts of your story that you were creating that got 140,000 views.
Yeah.
At that time, how many followers did you have roughly? Do you remember?
Probably like 1,200. Yeah, not a lot.
So the fact that you're getting 140,000 views with 1,200 followers,
Yeah.
I mean, these are numbers to dream of for many brands out there.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, dear listener, Jaslar's laying out a pretty solid blueprint, right, for branding and your next campaign. And the point is, it checks out. There's results. There's results to back it. And I was just, as you were talking about your campaign with the story that you were telling of these three characters and how you teased it, I was just thinking, imagine if you hadn't have done that. Imagine if you had showed up to your next clothing campaign, you thought, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do, like, spend the same amount of time and money. Same amount of time and money. It's just a different mindset. What you're going to do is I'm going to create a lookbook. We're going to, hire out a studio, get a photographer in. We're going to take photos of all the garments by themselves. We're going to take them on models. We're going to, and that's the content we're going to push for this next release, right? And so you do all the same things. You release the teasers, and you maybe you release it in parts, and you build up hype, waiting for drop day. I'm so sure it would not have gotten the same response that your story would have. And I truly believe that it was because you created a story around the garment, that you weren't doing a hard sell, right? Even the fact that you, inside your reels, it was at the end of every single micro story of this 3-part series that you put your product, right? And this is, I mean, this is integrating ads in value, integrating the ads inside of value. And I I didn't coin this term, but I've heard it coined, and I like to refer to it as story selling. And story selling is when your storytelling trying and selling a product. And that's essentially what you're doing. And story selling has the potential, it, like, just by thinking in that mindset, opens you up and opens your brand up to the potential to reach 140,000 people when you have 1,200 followers. And you change the numbers for your own streetwear brand. It doesn't matter. The point is storytelling works and story selling works. And so when these brands are trying to create their viral content with their next drop and build the hype and have a sellout clothing drop, and they're just posting about their product, and they spent the money on the lookbook and the studio shoot, maybe it's time to consider, what's your greater idea behind your brand, and how do you turn that into a story? Because then you really open up your world in ways that weren't possible before, in ways of differentiation and ways of reach. Like, even the fact that, oh man, I need to talk about this for a second, because even the fact that someone came up to you at your pop-up and said, I've seen this brand before,
Yeah.
like, and you referred to it, that people, like, most people won't buy the first time. Like, they need the points of contact, usually 7, at least 7 points of contact with your brand before they would even consider buying anything. And so the fact that you're creating something so shareable as a story means that you're reaching the top of the funnel. The top of the funnel being the strangers that haven't even experienced your brand yet. And there's something so powerful in that, because, man, it is, oh hell, it's a success formula. It is a success formula, if there ever was one. Yeah.
Yeah, this the video definitely, like, even just on not on a not on a numbers, like, sort of base, but it definitely, like, from that point, it's definitely sort of propelled the brand, and, like, the notoriety, the community, like, everything, like, has, from that point, like, it's really helped me in not just getting, like, more views and more numbers. It's helped me, like, sort of connect with my community and create a community, and, like, and that example with the pop-up, that's happened multiple times. Like, it happened, like, even on like Instagram, just random people, like, hitting me up, or people find my personal and whatever, and they're like, oh, you're the guy that did this, or whatever they do. People, and also, like, the quality of that sort of video was done very good. Shout out Jeremy.
He was your Wes Anderson, was he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he directed it. He was great. He is great. Love working with that guy. He definitely suggests, if you can. Where was I headed? But yeah, like, it helped me create. It helped me create, like, help. I already had the branding in that, but it helped me again. Like, it really propelled in different sort of ways, like in the numbers um, aspect, but then the branding, the community, like it, I guess the styling as well. It really helped in like many sort of ways. It's like by creating that story visually and that brand visually, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the community. That
For sure,
because
it's very important.
like at the end of the day, that is your like it creates it like that is your selling power. It is it is brands that have such a drive behind them. That is the community, right?
Mm.
That's when they're increasing customer loyalty, and that and like not only that, like it is the business benefits, because that matters, like it does matter, but it's
Mm.
also the fact that we're creating more than clothing here,
Yeah,
and we're actually advancing a, a just cause forward in creating something that people become a part of. They're not just buying commodities, that people can relate and identify with the vision that you're sharing with the world, and they decide, well, this is really for me, and I'm gonna in buying this hat, or in buying this jacket, or whatever it is, I'm not only just buying a product, I'm also unifying myself with a community of others who identify and relate with the same ideas and vision that Jaslar, this brand, is sharing. And having that big idea behind it allows you to build a community in that way. Um, it's not the only way, but it's my favorite way.
mm.
And yeah, so man, there's something really positive about that. There's something really positive. Yeah.
Yeah, and community is so important. Like it's, you could have 10,000 followers, but then it's a poor community, or you could have 2,000 and it's like the best community. Like if you have a good community that
Mm,
of 2,000 followers that sharing, liking, commenting, buying and all that sort of thing, it's a lot better than like 10,000 that aren't doing those things. They're just
absolutely.
sitting there and like watching. Like there's not really much point in that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like noise to the masses is sometimes not as good as a a personalized message to the few.
Mm,
Noise to the masses isn't as good as a personalized message to the few. And that's because, well, exactly as you say, sometimes the few have more power than the masses. And that's because they're really like, it's like-minded people that are unified by a like-minded idea. And people that operate like that, brands that operate in that mindset, cultivate a customer base that really, they operate like the greatest examples of community that we have, and that's Christian communities, or like religious communities of any kind, even like Muslim communities. Like it's people who get a lot, do a lot with little, simply because they have a shared vision. It's even like, I think Supreme did this well in the early days. They were, before anything big, they were the place to hang out for like-minded skateboarders. And look how far that's brought them.
yeah,
Now we see that at scale with how they engage their audience in New York City, in New York City culture and lifestyle,
yeah,
where they use the stories of artists and skaters to bring people together, and to um to actually do more than just sell a product, but as well, it helps them sell a product better. So yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, Jasla, is there I'd love before we finish off on the podcast, I'd love for you to share, if you can, a little bit about what your plans for your next campaign. You had a successful, I mean, you've had your It Pays to Look Both Ways campaign, and you've also launched a cap
Yeah,
recently. That was a different campaign, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That one was perceived really well as well. Like even like I think even from the it pays, it's brushing off onto like the next
Yep.
stuff as well.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so at the moment, been working with a skate brand, a local skate brand in to the Gold Coast called Cairo. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not. Um, so been working on a campaign with them. We've got two decks, two really cool decks coming out later this month with them. Been working on some videos and some content and stuff. Again,
Mm.
been posting BTS on TikTok and on stories on Instagram, and then we've got some photos, and then sorry, um, and then a video coming out again, video campaign, uh, of course, with the storytelling, Wes Anderson approach to it. So yeah, the idea behind it was if Wes Anderson made like a '90s skate film, so that was what we were aiming
Wow.
for. So that's our take on it. Anyway, he probably would have done it differently, but also has a lot bigger budget than we do, but it's coming out nicely. And then we're working towards staying a lot more consistent this year. We've we because we used to drop like larger collections, um, but then we'd have to spend too much time recuperating, getting ready for the next one that we weren't getting enough out in like as constant. So now we're opting for like smaller drops, but more consistent, aiming to drop once a month. To
Mm.
um, you know, because you don't want to drop something and then you're not posting for a couple months or whatever. But then also you don't want to just post random stuff that doesn't resonate um, at the same time. But
Keep those
yeah,
customers warm, hey?
exactly. That's the one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And for listeners who want to find you and maybe even check out some of your garments, where's the best place that they should go?
I like to send people to Instagram, definitely. So at
Mm.
Jaslar Pearl, so Jaslar, and then Pearl, just like the one you find in the ocean. Um, and then Jaslar Pearl Store is our website. If you want to check anything out, would be appreciated.
And Justler's Instagram page in particular is very much worth checking out, even from a business perspective, because this isn't talk. What Jasler has shared on this episode is evident in what he's doing in the brand and how his community, because it isn't just an audience, it is a community, is receiving what he's putting out to the world. um, and I think it's enabling him to do bigger and better things and grow exponentially into the future. So have a look at his Instagram page and take some notes from what Justler's up to. Yeah. Well, Jasler, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you, and I think there's a lot. I mean, I've learned a lot from you and your brand, from your story and your approach, as I believe the listeners have. So thank you for being so open and sharing, um, and not holding back, not gatekeeping everything that you have to offer.
For sure. Now, of course, I think that's very important as well. One last little thing is, you know,
Please, please.
um, back when I started, it wasn't as it's a lot more common now. It's like a lot of people are trying to do it, but back when I started trying to get help, trying to get advice, nobody wants to give it to you. Like, so that's why I
Mm,
always, anytime anyone asks me for help, I always try to give the best advice I can and try to steer them in the right direction, try to save them from mistakes that I may have made or whatever. Um, and hope for them to get success. But yeah, I appreciate you for having me on the show as well. It's been great being on here.
yeah. Well, thanks, Jasler. I hope to have you on again next time. And well, dear listeners, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week.